Oh, my name's Mike Hodges. I'm a mentor with the UWF Executive Mentor Program, and I'm here with a mentee, Samuel D. Oliveira. And we had partnered together last semester doing our mentorship remotely. We were the first team that was going to do this. Dr. Hartnett asked us to do this remotely. I am in Pensacola, and Samuel is in Tampa, right? You're
Fort Myers.
Fort Myers, okay. You're down in another part of the state. So we've had all of our meetings remotely. And of course, at the time, nobody knew that COVID would come up. So Dr. Hartnett asked us to do a best practices video in case we have to start doing this remotely throughout the program where everybody has to do that. What we're going to talk about today is we're going to give you a brief overview of some of the best practices that we found. Then I'm going to throw it over to Samuel. He's going to share the mentee perspective with you, and I'm going to share some things that I've learned from the mentor position, and then we'll wrap it up. So I think we both agreed that in terms of doing things remotely, it's obviously a different dynamic than if you're meeting face to face, and it's absolutely critical that you establish good habits in the partnership and that you have first and foremost a respect for each other's time. That Samuel and I were very good at saying, okay, when do you want to meet? And it's really up to the two of you, whether you want to meet weekly or bi-weekly or whatever you want to do, but make sure that both people are comfortable with the time and the spacing apart of the meetings, and then put it on the calendar. Make a commitment. This should be every much of a commitment as a business meeting or when you're showing up to take a test. This isn't something casual. This is something that's important. Whatever calendar system you use, email or whatever calendar you use, put it in, use reminders, coordinate with the other person, remind them of your upcoming meeting. Of course, you want to have respect for the other person. If something comes up and life gets in the way, then you want to go ahead and let them know, hey, I can't make it. Can we reschedule? Samuel and I both agreed that we tried to keep that to a minimum. We made this a priority, and I think it worked out really, really well doing it that way. So obviously make sure you're comfortable with whatever platform you're using. We use Zoom, whatever you're using. Just make sure that both people are comfortable with that. When you do show up, kind of be ready to go. Have a notebook, have a piece of paper, have a quiet environment. Treat this, as I said, like a business meeting or like you're taking a test, something very serious. And I think that's the best kind of overview, the best way to set it up to get positive results.
I completely agree with you, Mike. It's just a few thoughts with respect to the meeting portion of it. With each meeting, what's helped me from being a mentee is having been very thorough. So if I knew we were going to be discussing a topic in advance, I would do research, I would do diligence. Just once again, it kind of comes back to being respectful to the mentor's time. And it truly is basically whatever you invest is what you will get back. So what do I mean by that? Being thorough, being respectful, and being committed. As Mike had alluded before, I'm sure everybody watching this video is currently in college or has college experience. You definitely recall like, oh, all the professors want to give you a paper at the same time, or you have a final exam to take at the same time. Well, for this, definitely do not put it on the back burner. This is something, however much of a high priority you make this, it will come back to you tenfold, especially the vast resources and several volunteers that are a part of the mentor program. It'd be a wasted opportunity and it only hurt you in the end if you don't come as prepared as you think you can.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. From the mentor's point of view, I would say you really want to focus on service. You want to give the mentee the best service that you possibly can. I've worked with a few different people, and each person is different. So you're going to open the lines of communication and ask them, how can I serve you? What do you need help with? And you kind of, I believe you should let them set that agenda. They're the ones that are going to come to you with the specific things they need help with. And then I also think it's very important to, yes, you should give specifics, and yes, you should say, hey, here's something I've learned, and give them a specific solution. I would be really careful not to fall towards lecturing or just telling them you need to go do this, this, and this. I think the most valuable lessons are when you kind of have just an open, honest, back and forth conversation, and maybe perhaps guide the conversation, but let the mentee come to their own conclusions. If they come to the decision themselves, or they come up with their own decision and they buy in, it's going to be a lot more powerful than if it's just somebody just sitting back and talking to them saying, you should do this, that, and the other thing. I'd also point out, this is something that I've noticed, just bear in mind that the world is very different. It's a completely different place than when we were going to school, however many years ago. Some of us, it may have been 25, 35, 45 years ago since you've been in school, and it's a completely different world. So I don't think that we want to so much give people a specific how to do this, this, and this, as much as we want to share with them kind of timeless principles, values, and ideas, things that we've just learned, social things, etiquette, some of the so-called soft skills, just things that we've had to learn the hard way, and then pass that on so that they can take it and apply it to their own unique circumstances. Their circumstances will be different than ours were when we were coming up just out of college. But those kind of timeless principles and ideas, those are going to stay the same. And we ultimately want to have empathy and kind of walk along in the journey and give them some tools that they can use going forward.
And so kind of in the beginning of what Mike was saying from the mentee perspective with, and just to give mentors some feedback on our end, I mean, it was just every issue or every item or every subject that we had discussed, I really appreciated, and it was very well received when the messages weren't so much, as Mike had alluded to earlier, do this. It was totally not like that. It was, well, in my experience, and then I would get to hear about the different experiences that Mike has had and the different avenues or resources or tools or you name it, that he was able to use to overcome the obstacles. And another thing I can mention, I can plug in at this point, is if you think you know everything, it's probably not a good program for you, because
Right.
there's an awful lot of things that I've learned just in about a semester or two, however long we've been speaking. It's been quite a while now, actually. But it's just coming humble, coming ready to learn. And Mike, as he had said earlier, I like to handwrite notes. I'm sure most mentors don't mind if you type away as the conversation progresses. But just whatever topics, and just to give you some ideas and examples, at the very beginning, I think our first meeting after the introductory, so really the second meeting that we had was, I had some just questions about, I think it was career advancement. And we just kind of went through the whole, these are my talents. This is what I've done. And it was all like an agenda and all content that I had to do ahead of time. So to kind of take it into the next subject of thoughts here is, it's very important to have time management, because I imagine you're working, I know you're going to school, and whatever family obligations you have, COVID pending it allowing to happen, it sneaks up on you, like the meetings and the different responsibilities that you have. So it is critical that you become an expert at time management if you already aren't. And again, I know you've heard that from professors and family and parents and everybody in your life, but it is very important. And developing a process was really helpful for me, just because it keeps things organized. And if you think about it, you only have however long the two of you have free. So if you schedule a virtual call for, 6 p.m., the call probably won't last longer than an hour if you have that time. Going back to time management, if you have to study for tests, et cetera, you got to take that into account. So you really have 20, 30 minutes to an hour to get whatever it is you need. So by having and mastering time management, developing a very effective process, and making sure you keep the meeting to the best of your ability, do not push. From the mentee perspective, you have to realize most mentors, if not all, are business owners. They work. Of course, they more likely have families. They also have several obligations. So when they make time for you, it is critical that you may do everything in your power to honor that. Obviously, there are some things that happen, God forbid, death in the family, or something tragic or something major that you really do have to push. probably understandable. Anything outside of that, I would really encourage you to keep the meeting, just because it truly only comes back to hurt you in the end.
Yeah, and I like what you said from the mentor perspective about coming prepared. One of the things that makes it a little easier, the mentor's point of view, is if you know what you're going to be talking about and you have some sort of an idea of what you can offer assistance with. Somebody, I would say to the mentees, don't be afraid to ask for advice. And it's okay even if you don't know specifically what to ask. You know, a lot of times people say, well, I don't kind of know what I need help with. Maybe you just are facing some general uncertainty or some general doubt. It's perfectly fine to say to your mentor, look, I'm not really sure what I need help with, but I know I'm graduating and I'm going to be putting out resumes for jobs, and I've never done this, and I don't really know. Here's what I think is going to happen. Here's what I'm concerned about what's going to happen. I just don't, you might not have anything more than that. That's fine. It's precisely the type of thing that your mentor, having gone through that, and then give you some assistance and give you some advice. But don't feel like even if you don't have some specific questions, it doesn't always, if you do have specific questions, that's great. And as Samuel said, definitely write those down, keep track of those. The saying goes, make sure you get your money's worth out of your time. If you have questions, make sure that you ask them. It's okay to have general questions too, or even if you don't really know what you want, to just kind of say, generally, I'm not sure how to behave in this situation. I don't know how to come across in interviews. I don't know what the people might be looking for. I have some uncertainty or doubt about these things. That's okay too. That's okay too. I would say don't make the mentor kind of drag that out of you, right? I mean, don't be bashful. Tell them what you want. Like Samuel said, we're business people. We're business owners. We've done this before. We understand. We understand we're here to help. That's why we're in the program. So don't be bashful. Whatever you need help with, just come out and say, hey, here's something really specific. Or even if it's not specific, if it's just a general, I don't know, that's okay too. I think that's really important. Coming to people with a balance, kind of the general and the specific. Whatever place you're in, that's what you need to talk about.
Awesome. I also wanted to add a few more examples, just in case if mentees and even mentors would just be curious as to the content. If anybody's looking for what I meant as far as like developing a process and time management, what really worked for Mike and I was at the very beginning, especially, I would kind of come up with talking points or an agenda, and it was almost always mutually built. It's not like this is what I want to talk about. It was, do you want to add anything? It was kind of a shared agenda, just so that way both folks will have the ability to modify what they want to talk about, but also to get the most out of the time. And so that means you're going to have homework. And what I mean by that, it's not like you're going to have to go get textbooks and stuff. No, it's you're going to have, okay, you have to think about what you're going to speak about, what that will look like, and then asking as much as you can succinctly, but also with deeper levels. So kind of piggybacking off of what Mike was saying about don't being afraid to ask, goodness, you can come out and just say, how do I get a job? Or I feel like I should have gotten a job, or I feel like I really messed up a project, or just whatever you want to speak about. And don't be afraid to share details, dig down, maybe even share work. We would do several emails back and forth, sometimes documents of things that I would have appreciated proofing. Like I had done a project for my class actually, and I had got together a survey, and I had asked Mike to help me get people just take the survey because I needed more numbers, and even that was helpful. I mean, you could just anything you could think of. But if your focus of the meetings, if they do become specific topics, I would highly recommend, as the mentee, you're going to have to prepare the meeting. So you're going to have to basically set the conversation up ahead of time. And then afterwards, I know I was given a few, if you will, assignments, like think about the situation from this perspective. And then you would probably make notes as you're thinking about it. And then you would then take that content, and that's your subject for the next call, and you build on it. there are just so many different examples that we've had. And I think just the most important takeaway from a mentee, outside of being respectful to the time and staying committed, is being able to create a system that works. And if you find a system that works better than what we're suggesting, I mean, definitely share it with Dr. Hartnett and other mentees and mentors that you know are taking the program.
Absolutely. And I'll throw one other example that came in. Now, Samuel, I didn't do this with you, but I did this with another mentee. He was getting ready to graduate and was in the process of putting together his resume, and he hadn't actually done that yet. So we talked for a while, and I told him, why don't you put together a resume and send me a copy of it, and we'll pretend like I'm interviewing you for a job, because I've actually sat on that side of the desk before. And when we got to talking, I looked at his resume, and then I asked questions of him. I said, okay, tell me about this experience and tell me about that experience. And turned out that he just basically started, because, you know, obviously it wasn't a job interview, he had less pressure and less stress. He just started kind of telling me stories about what he had done. And one of the things that he had done, he had been an RA at school, and he was responsible for his dorm room one night, and I can't remember the specifics, but something happened and a bunch of people called in sick. So he had to change the check-in process, the way that they secured the dorm. There was something, somebody had had an accident and they didn't know, I think, where the medical supplies were stored. So he came up with a checklist on how to store these things differently, how to secure the building better, and do a couple of other things. And I told him, you know, that's the kind of thing you need to put on your resume, that you came up with the new system of, you know, security procedures or logistical procedures for the dorm room. He did something similar at a part-time job he was working at, because from the point of view of a mentor sitting behind a desk, having been on the other side of the desk giving interviews, you know, a lot of resumes can sometimes look the same. And, you know, they all kind of hit the same points. Everybody's got a similar degree. They have similar type jobs. What he showed me was that he had some initiative. He wasn't afraid to take a calculated risk. He made a decision and he took an action. He saw that there was a problem and he wasn't afraid to try and do something about it. And as a potential employer, that's incredibly valuable. That's really important from my perspective. And I think most of the mentors would agree that if you have somebody that shows that kind of creative thinking and innovation and is not afraid to take the initiative and make things happen, you know, those are the kind of things that you want to put on your resume. Now, he had no idea about that, you know, obviously, because nobody had ever told him that before. So that's the type of thing that I think is important. Going back and forth and establishing that communication style between the mentor and the mentee, whatever everybody's needs will be different. By having that relationship and having a structure and kind of planning out what you're talking at, you'll be able to start uncovering some of these areas. I think it produce really good fruit if you plan and you work at it.
Yep. Yeah, that's excellent. And just kind of the last point that I wanted to make was don't be afraid to make it personal. And I mean that like personable. And it's actually a really great, if you're not comfortable or confident in a person-to-person relationship or how to build rapport, et cetera, this is another great opportunity overall to kind of get that experience, because I'm assuming everybody watching this video is in the College of Business, and that's a very critical skill to have, even if you don't go into sales, supply chain, human resources, whatever it is that you are looking for in the business world, you're going to have to talk to people. So I'm actually currently enrolled in the MBA program, Master of Business Administration, with the focus of entrepreneurship, but my background is in psychology. And I chose that because I knew whatever it is that I was going to do in the future, it was going to involve people. But really, in my experience, you know, in college and the jobs that you typically get in college, the best experiences or the best connections that you can make that might lead you to a job, or it will lead you to success, or it's just a great experience, whatever it is, it all comes from the person-to-person connection. And that's, I just can't, that's the second most important thing other than being respectful to the mentor's time.
Well, I would second that. I would say, I guess my wrap up thoughts would be, a lot of business and being successful in your career and in life in general is about knowing how to form and handle relationships. And what's interesting here is, you know, as you go through life, you're going to meet people who are very different than you. And you're going to have to be able to find a way to form an effective relationship with them. And this is a great program for that. Now you're getting practice having a relationship with someone who's in a different place than you are. Depending on whether you're the mentor or the mentee, they're either going to be older than you or younger than you. They're going to be starting out. They're going to be experienced. So now you're having to step forward and talk to somebody who may not on the surface have a lot of things in common with you. And particularly if you're just starting out, that can be a little awkward. That can be a little weird. As Samuel alluded to, that's absolutely critical. You're going to have to learn how to interact with other people. That's probably one of the most valuable aspects of the program, I think, is the so-called soft skills, effective communication, getting to know people, getting to form relationships, making it personable. It's a really important skill set as you move through the business world. It only gets more important with time. So you're getting some good practical experience doing this. Make sure you take full advantage of it.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Thank you. So I think that's it. Samuel, do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
So that's basically it. We've got we spoke about all the other thoughts that we had that I had written down, and I think that's it. And just to kind of recap everything, just being thorough, being respectful, being committed, having a process, and whatever process and things you develop throughout this, don't be afraid to share it. I'm sure Dr. Hartnett would love to hear success stories or just what worked best for certain individuals. If something works for you, it may not work for someone else, but something you could be doing definitely might benefit someone else. So just don't be afraid.
Absolutely. That's a great conclusion. I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this helps. Best of luck to all of you in your future endeavors, and take care and be well. Have a good day. Bye now.